Welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today's tutorial will be white pencils on black paper. So we're going to use white charcoal and white Prismacolor. The charcoal because it blends easily, and the Prismacolor because it's very opaque and bright. Come along and draw with me. So chiaroscuro, where your object looks like it just stepped out of the darkness, there's still a lot of black in there, and the cool thing is you just leave it, you let it go. So her little outfit, we're just not even going to touch it. That little parts of her hair, maybe some of those shadows under her neck, under her arm, just let it go. You just don't even do it. So what we're going to do is we've got to pick out, first of all, our composition. We've got to finish out where we're going to put everything. So I'm going to start with the white charcoal because that is easily covered and you can easily erase it, easier than other things like Prismacolor. So I'm just going to, I don't want her head all the way to be the top. So I just want to make a little mark up there and say that's kind of where I want her head and her hands to be. Very light little mark. You don't have to press hard with this at all to see it. And you want her elbows to touch or come close to touching some of those sides. So I'm just going to leave myself just a little bit of room. Say somewhere over there's an elbow, and somewhere over there is going to be an elbow. And that kind of helps you to decide how big everything's going to be. And if you've got a little bit of vision, you can say, well, I see her head is about down in there somewhere. Her chin is maybe about right in here. So there's her head, somewhere down in there. And her hand is going to be about right in there somewhere. And there's an arm that kind of comes this way. And it's almost straight. I mean, look at the highlight in her arm. It's almost straight. This one, it goes down just a little bit. So you might have it just angled just a little bit down. We will adjust this too. There's her elbow. And it angles in just a little bit. Same thing over here. Comes down. Little stick figure kind of thing. Her torso is going to be up here. So if that's her chin down there, you can see this little bit of light that's down in there. You can just ever so lightly put that little bit of light in. We can adjust this as we go. How much space goes between the top of that or the bottom of that light and the top of her stomach? Is there about the same amount of space as her head? Not quite, but almost. So I can kind of go up in there and go, okay, it's about that much, not quite, almost. I can put a little line in there. You can say, well, if that's her belly, her stomach goes down into here, little top right there, maybe about the same amount of space as I have here, about right there. A little bit of light there, a little bit on this side. And you see it kind of starting to come together. One thing I don't want to do is draw a line around everything. So what I'm going to do is just pick out the lightest shapes I see and draw those in. And you can start anywhere you want to. If you wanted to start with her elbow over here, you definitely could. You just start with the elbow and just throw in the shapes of lightness. Now, it's kind of triangular. This one kind of has a little arch up there at the top. We just don't want to draw a line. That line would be hard to get rid of. So just the shape of that light. And you can't think of it like an arm. It's just light. It's just light and dark. That's all it is. Light and dark. Now look at the distance between this part of the light and that part of the light. Is that triangle of darkness there about the right shape? This is called negative space. You want to look at that and say, okay, is that negative space about the right shape? Is that kind of the way it looks? Here's her hand. And again, I'm just looking at the shape of the light, trying to get it in about the right place. There's a finger. It's just a little light sausage. No definition, no detail. Here's another one that comes up, and there's a little triangle of black in between them. Try to pick up that triangle of black. Look at the negative shapes, a little part of darkness that's there. And if it's not quite right, then adjust it. Whatever you feel like you need to adjust, go ahead and adjust it. You can even adjust things like with your kneaded eraser. You go in and just pull out little things, whatever you feel like you need to. You're probably a pretty good judge of what you see. It does take a little bit of practice, but after a while, you can see things. I'm also going to put in the little shines in her hair. I'm not really worried about her hair per se, just the lighter parts of it. So I'm just going to throw in the shapes of lightness that I see, ever so lightly. I'm not pressing down. All this can be easily erased. And if it's dark, let it go. Let it be dark. See how easily that charcoal, you can get rid of it. I'm going to go ahead and do her forehead. If you go straight out from her finger and then down a little bit, that's where that forehead starts. And just do the shape of the forehead. And look how it lines up, like with her wrist. If you go straight over from her wrist and up just a little bit, that's where the eyebrow is. Almost in the middle of her wrist right there. Little eyebrow. We're going to make these things brighter too. So you can be very soft with this. Here's the bridge of her nose. And just keep it really soft and light. We're just drawing the negative shapes. Here's an eyelid that you can barely see. There's a little, it's almost a triangle of darkness under her nose. You can come back in with your kneaded eraser. You can get rid of whatever you need to. Look at the space between the tip of her nose and her cheek over there. Look how thin it is. Not much there. Her bottom lip has a very light little line across it. About right there. That's about it. And there's a shadow under that. And then her chin has a little bit of light across it. And that really is about it. And it almost looks like a ghost drawing. You're just kind of drawing the ghost part of it. There's no detail, just ghosty. Here's her hair. I was a little off with that shadow. That's okay though. I can adjust it. So So as I come down, I'm just going to adjust it. All this, I think I'm going to have to adjust it down. But you need that point of reference to begin with. Without that point of reference, how do you know how big to make it? Her arm, if you look at the bottom of her chin, and you go straight across, that's about where her deltoid is, their shoulder muscle. It kind of goes up. This triangle over here is a little narrower than that one is over there. Again, I'm going to have to just adjust that a little bit, I'm sure of it. Hey, thanks for drawing with me today. This is, I have had a hard day, and this is much more relaxing. Sometimes it's good to do a little bit of drawing. I'm going to try to put in that shape of that arm, just the shadow or the light that I see kind of swells around her little flexor extensor muscles that are up there on her forearm. Then just goes into the wrist. Then up into the hand. A lot of this, we're going to smear it and soften it up. But before I do that, I want to get my proportions. I want to get everything about the way it should be. That arm might be a little long, so I'm going to shorten it just a wee bit. Now again, I'm kind of guessing. I have to just kind of look at the shapes that I've got in here as her hair kind of comes down over the top of that, curls. And then I've got to go, okay, how much distance is there? About that much distance. And then that whole shape of her belly can just be shaded in. Like I said, we're going to blend it a little bit. So just with the side of your pencil, just blend that in just a little bit. You're not stuck with anything yet. So I had to move it down. It just was too short. Where does her hip go to? I mean, the light part that we can see goes where? About down to the middle of her arm there. So if I drop straight down from there, then that light part of that hip should be that far over. Is that about right? If I put it right there, I could even go over a little bit further. And this other side, it comes over about from there straight down. So I'm about right over there. But that little edge is almost lost. I'm not sure where it starts and stops. So I'm just going to leave it kind of sketchy like that. We'll figure it out. And then her legs, somewhere about down in there, somewhere. And just not straight down, but a little farther out. So this has got to come out here. And so it's about right in there. It's got to come out curve down. And that we can get lost too. I mean, we can just blend that and just lose it towards the bottom of your page. Everybody understands it goes further. I don't think that she got any more down there. Nope. See, it kind of blends right out down there. And you just leave it. That's kind of fun. This kind of comes down, that right in there. And hopefully now my proportions are probably okay. I'm going to have to erase a little bit here and there, or add a little bit more. Nothing is ever perfect. Now I'm going to go in, I'm just going to blend a little bit of this just to soften the edges. You can use a cotton swab, you can use your fingers, but I'm just going to use this cotton swab and blend it a little bit. That'll soften it up. And then anything more that I layer into it, it's going to hopefully go soft. It also helps to soften some of my edges, especially when you're dealing with chiaroscuro. You're going to have soft edges as the flesh kind of turns around and gets lost into the darkness. I do want to be very aware that there might be a little reflected light down in there. So like just off of this arm, there might be a little reflected light. I almost can see it. And so I'm going to just put that in there. If you think, well, it's not that dark or that light, you can take your kneaded eraser and just touch it if you need to. But that little subtle, little bit of light that's there, it's very subtle. So you can see a difference between this arm and that one. This one's a little grainy. So I'm just going to go back into that. I can do the hair too if I want to just blend out the hair a little bit. Let's make her just a wee bit smaller. We can see the top of the hair. There's a little bit of hair that kind of fluffs up over there. You can get that with your cotton swab because it's very light. And some of this we might think, oh, well, we'll come back into that with our kneaded eraser and pull out some more darkness because we might have too much light in there. We can always add more, so don't add too much. You know, yes, it is brighter than we've got it here, but we can add more. We can brighten it up. If you add too much right now, sometimes it gets too much. You could do this entire picture with just charcoal if you'd like. But I like the Prismacolor kind of standing by because it's going to really make it pop. It's really going to add the bit of light that we really need. The most important part of this is probably her face. And so I may want to go back into the face and make that really pop. Now, up to this point, I really haven't done a lot of detail. But because of the shadows, you kind of start drawing it in with your mind and saying, oh, hey, you know, I can see that. So the first thing after I get this blended is I'm going to go in with my kneaded eraser and just pull out some areas that I think are really dark, like her belly button, maybe some of those shadows of her abdomen. And I'm going to fix my edges. Some of them aren't so good. I'll just kind of make sure that everything is looking like it should before I add the highlights, because this stuff can still be erased. Once you hit those highlights, it's hard to get rid of those. See if I can get that belly button in just the right place. About right down in there somewhere. I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser and just go in and just pull out some of those little dark areas. I can always go back over them and make them lighter if I pull out too much or in the wrong place. I'm just softly using my kneaded eraser to pull out some of those darker areas. And I can do this later too. I don't have to do it all right now. Once I start doing the highlights, then maybe that's a good time to do that. Now I'm just going to analyze it and again, adjust. Whatever I feel like I need to adjust, whether I need to make things bigger or smaller or rounder or whatever. Now we're about ready to make things pop. Now I can do that with my Prismacolor, or I can add more charcoal to this. It's kind of up to you how you do that. I'm going to just go with the Prismacolor because I know what I can do with the Prismacolor. So the little shine on her nose and on her forehead, that's a great place to start. But also usually right under the nostril, on the lip, as the lip kind of comes out, there's going to be the shine there, on the cheekbone and on the chin. So those little things, I just know what to expect. That's a given. So I'm gonna do that right from the start. I come in right above the eyebrow. Maybe a little bit of a highlight right there. See how that just pops? It just boom, hits you like a wet banana on a Sunday afternoon. You can tell I play Mario Kart, right? You play Mario Kart, Mac? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going over that charcoal with the Prismacolor. I can use a little bit of pressure and make it a little brighter or less pressure. And I've got a lot of light on here. If we took out the light, it doesn't look as bright as it is. But it's brighter back here than it really is. So if you're thinking, oh, mine's not as bright as Mr. Lowe's, that's okay. It isn't this bright. The camera goes crazy. I don't know what to do. So I'm just ever so lightly, I'm not even hardly pressing with this Prismacolor. It does a lot already. I don't know. Can I do that? You can see what it is without the light. I know that I can see that little shine on her nose. I'm going to throw that in. And the tip of her nose is much brighter. So again, I'm just adding a little bit of light there. And you can pick and choose by how much pressure you put on there. And you don't need much. Just look at the lights, put in the shape of the light, and you got it. Can't hardly see anything in the other eye. There's got to be something there, maybe a little bit of an eyelid, maybe a tiny, tiny bit right there. I need something to show that little bit of the eyelid. And then, if you want it to look like it's slightly open, you can see a little bit of eyelid down there, just a tiny bit. If you do that, then it makes it look like her eyes are open and not glowing. And really, that's about as much of the face as you need, at least that part up there. I'm going to hit the lips now, that little bit of a shadow under the nose. Need a little bit more shadow there. Take my kneaded eraser and just pull out a little bit there. And right under that nostril, and as it goes down towards the philtrum, that little divot above your lip, and then right above the lip, where the philtrum is, you can see that little V shape right there. Again, you can do this with charcoal if you want. More shadow under there, and take out that charcoal with the kneaded eraser. Or add a little bit in there if you need to. A little bit of charcoal just along that bottom lip, just a little bit. I'm going to blend that. A little bit of the highlight on her bottom chin. And you got it. Everything else is going to be a piece of cake. Now again, I'm going to use my Prismacolor in conjunction with my kneaded eraser. Try to keep the darks darks and the lights light. A little bit of a shine on her fingernail, a little bit down the finger, but you don't need to draw a line around the finger or even define it. It's just the light. You just let the finger define itself. And just look at the lightest areas and just define those lightest areas. They're not fingers, they're just light. When you're done, you look like fingers. Now you can take this as far as you want to go. I mean, you can actually work on this a lot longer and get it till it's photographic. We just want to get the basics and make it look good for what it is. I'm looking at the darkest or the lightest areas, putting those in, blending out the edges a little bit, and you got it. We always feel a need to draw a line around things. And here, you can't. It would look really silly with the line because the line is light. Dark's already done for you. And again, you can use charcoal or Prismacolor or both. Here I'm putting a little bit of charcoal over the top of that Prisma because I think it needs to be a little lighter. But then it goes too light, so I just blend it. And the white Prismacolor that was underneath it is going to stay where the charcoal blends out. It goes kind of in between it. And gives it a nice soft finish. Her hair is not very bright at all. I don't think there's much Prismacolor that you'd put into that. I'm going to use a little more charcoal here and there and just blend it and call it good. Maybe even use my kneaded eraser in there and just pull out a few little spots. Anything that's really bright, I'm going to use the charcoal on. Or excuse me, the Prismacolor. Anything that is softer, I'm going to do charcoal. Once you get enough charcoal on your cotton swab, you can almost draw with it. You just go in and pull out a couple little light areas. Like in the hair, we're just going to use this cotton swab here in the hair to get some of these little shines. You just come back into it with your kneaded eraser. Pull out a little bit of the darkness and it'll look like hair. No big deal. When you get down to the tummy, you just pick out the lightest areas, blend those in. Those darker areas we've already done. Like I say, there's a lot more you could do to this if you'd like to. But you just kind of leave it kind of floating there in the middle. All that darkness, that she's surrounded by is really kind of neat. Last thing you do is clean up any edges and tighten up any highlights that you think you need. And of course, your signature is important. Where would you put it? For me, I'd probably put it somewhere right down in there somewhere. Just under her hip right there. It's a good place for it. Thanks for drawing with me again, you guys. It's been such a pleasure. And this was fun. No pressure. It's a lot of fun. And I hope you have a lovely day.